All right, we're live now.
Just 1 second. Okay. That's good. So EJ, are we almost there?
Very good. Go ahead.
Okay, welcome everyone to, again, we are fresh in the new year of 2026, which according to the Asian calendar is the year of the fire horse, which means a year of great aggression and great things to come, and with positive force. But anyway, we are here and want just to welcome everyone to the platform again. We have been going on for what, over 3 years. We're proud to say, and in that 3 years has been an extraordinary journey. And this journey has enlightened us to the well-wishers, people out there that are just from their heart and their souls are doing positive things for humanity. And when you listen to all of the speakers that we've had on this webinar, Stopping the Violence, which originally they just started from the founder, Mother Moon, who said that we need to deal with gun violence. And but as we went on with different guests, we kind of tweaked the name a little bit because we felt like it's not only gun violence, but it's root causes. It's something, what does it take for someone to pick up a gun, an inanimate object, and harm and hurt his fellow brother or fellow sister or fellow friend, whoever it is, fellow human beings. So many things, many times you'll find that there's a root cause, there's some motivation behind them that causes them to do those, and we discover those. And what are they? There's various. It could be demographics, drugs, all kind of recidivism, meaning back and forth in the prison systems, or in the environment, the home, the family. All those type of things plays an intricate part in people exerting violence to others and in their communities. So, like I have said, we have had ministers, we've had other faith leaders, we've had social workers, social activists, community activists, we've had mayors, other political leaders, just a plethora of different individuals in our community that have played a critical role in their different ways in stopping violence in their community and helping with prevention and helping with different types of post-violent activities. So we're very happy to have another guest on, and I'd like to give you another I'd like to introduce you to him and read his bio a little bit, so you'll be familiar who he is and what he has done, and how he's playing his critical role in where he's in his respective area in stopping the violence. And this is our Pastor William Lockett. Pastor Lockett hasn't always been a Pastor Lockett, but he's always been an entrepreneur with only working 1 year as an employee in his entire adult life. Impressive. He established the Micah House of Victory through Faith Recovery Service in 2004 under the guise of the Holy Spirit, under the unction of the Holy Spirit. For the past 22 years, he has been treating adult males suffering from addiction. The Micah House is a culturally specific faith-based program that has used a different treatment approach that has brought about different results that have impacted countless lives and hopefully change generations to come. That's very impressive, Pastor, and we're looking forward to seeing the specifics, especially in the cultural realm that you have shared, and how God has been working through you. So we just want to welcome you to our platform and in this hour.
Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. And I come to this invitation through Brother VJ Smith. And so I've known Brother VJ and worked with him for many years now when he was located here in the Twin Cities doing his Mad Dad program. So we used to work in tandem with one another because, you know, as individuals would come through the program, I would refer them over to VJ would refer them over to me. And so that has been my wheelhouse. So just giving you a little background about myself. When I say that I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, only 1 year out of my adult life have I actually worked for an employer, because I've always had that spirit as an entrepreneur. So growing up in the state of Minnesota, which isn't a large Black population, back in the early 60s, I may not look it, but I'm 60 years old. And so the early years, there was only like a 1-2% Black population here. And so I say that because I'm proud of the fact to come from this environment, to be able to achieve the level that God has allowed me to achieve. I'm very thankful and proud of that, because as we know, some of the external influences can be dominant on the individual's life. And so I was able to break the mold and the chain, and I left Minnesota and I went to Ohio, and that's where I went to college at, a historically Black institution. So it was a culture awakening for me to go from a predominantly white environment to a predominantly Black environment, to see other people that looked like me, that was professional, you know, that had education and were shakers and movers. So it became a new awakening for myself, because had I stayed here, I may have fallen subject to those influences here in the state of Minnesota, being that most of my family, none of my family had went to college previously, and they were all into, you know, drug dealing and the street life and that type of environment. And at that time, Minnesota was very conducive for any young Black person to go to the street life, especially prostitution, because that was the industry that a lot of young Black folks got involved with. And so I didn't want my life to go that way. Why? Because I had a great grandmother, a praying grandmother, that showed me something different. And so when we talk about stopping the violence, I see a correlation to my life. So hadn't I fall subject to the influences, then my story would be different now. But I see that God had his hand on me and guided and led me, because I believe that we're a summation of our experiences. It's not a matter of this is the life I chose, but the life has chosen you, and there's a path for each and every one of us. And so I was just thankful to have the guidance. And when I say the unction of the Holy Spirit, because truly it was. Being an entrepreneur, I grew up, you know, hustling, cutting grass, shoveling snow here in the state of Minnesota. And so those gave me certain traits and a background to how to survive. So even though I had a college degree, I graduated from college, and those external influences became even stronger. And so I went a different path after getting a 4-year degree. I went back to the street life. And so I seen a something inside of me that scared me, that I was at the point of now doing violence to other human beings. And it shook me to the core, because I knew that wasn't how I was raised. And so, like I said, I'm thankful that I had a praying Black grandmother, and her words kept playing in my spirit and in my mind. So I wouldn't go too far. I would come back, but it was like a seesaw, back and forth, until I finally got to the place where God, you know, had me to say, okay, either I'm gonna go left or I'm gonna go right. And I'm like, Lord, I'm coming straight towards you. And so after leaving Minnesota, graduating from college, coming back, then I started working for a company here, a treatment program called Turning Point. So that was my first real employment as an adult. And so I was always an entrepreneur-minded individual, and I overheard 2 gentlemen having a conversation about buying some property. I didn't know them, but I invited myself in. And so we formed a company called the Affinity House, and we started providing sober housing. And so it evolved eventually into a treatment program. And now I can see how God's hand was on my life because all those previous experiences prepared me for what I do now. So when I make the statement, I haven't always been Pastor Lockett, is because I lived a different life. And those experiences, now I put to practice trying to impact and change the lives of other people. Now, I've always been a low key type of individual, don't really get out there on Front Street. I like to fly underneath the radar because I notice when you stick your head out too far, you can get it chopped off. And so that's just some of my background. But what it has taught me is to focus on the needs of the people. So I wanted to title this Stopping the Violence, One Person, One Starfish at a Time. Because the different approach for the Micah House isn't to focus on numbers. I focus on the individual. And I look at it, that story about the starfish, when you see the shore full of them, and you throw this one back, and somebody would say, well, you're really not making a difference, but you made a difference with that one. Because years ago, when we first started, it's been over 22 years now, but when we first started, I had an individual that came in my program and his funding failed. And I said, okay, well, today's Friday, come back and see me Monday, and we'll go down to the county and see if we can get them to change their mind. Well, that weekend, he stole a car, had a high-speed chase with the police, ran into a stop sign, and died. And so his mother, he was from Chicago, and his mother came to visit. She said, I wanted to see the last place that my son was at. And so she came, and I asked her if she could speak to the group. So as this mother was speaking to the group, I had a vision. All of a sudden, every individual in the room began to expand. Like when you're standing in the elevator and you're looking at the mirror and it seems like you go for infinity. That's what I began to see, because at that time, the county was telling me, well, we really don't want you to get involved, a personal relationship with the clients. We want you to just do the treatment episode, cut them off, and then let them move on. But that's not my approach. I understand that you have to make a real human connection with somebody to make a difference in their life. You want them to feel connected. You want them to feel a part of something greater than themselves, because then that keeps that feeling of accountability. And so at that moment, when I seen that reflection and it seemed as though everybody was going on for affinity, it gave me the impression like you may just make a difference and impact on this one individual, but it's going to be countless lives that's going to be touched as a result of what this one person does. And so it's always been my approach to just focus on the individual, because when tasked with this assignment to do this presentation, because stopping the violence isn't like it's my wheelhouse. It's not like this is my focus. I'm focused on treatment and recovery, but violence and treatment, a lot of that activity goes hand in hand, because a lot of the people that we get come through the Department of Corrections or off the street, and they're accustomed to violence. It becomes part of the custom and the lifestyle. And so I began to meditate on it, and I began to think, and the Bible is my source of information. And so as I was reading my Bible, even this morning, talking about the wickedness, so long as you have wickedness, you're going to have violence. So when you're talking about stopping the violence, it's so ingrained into our culture, to our society, especially here in America. How can you really make a difference? I mean, because you're seeing a whole seashore full of these starfish. How are you going to make an impact and a difference? Especially you see what's taking place in Minnesota right now. That woman was shot and killed just 2 blocks away from the Micah House. George Floyd riot went right past my house. Lake Street 31st. My house is on 31st and in between Lake Street. So we feel this when, the community's in an uproar. They've been protesting, they're blocking off the streets. It's hard for us to even get to the house. But I see that hatred, wickedness, and violence is ingrained in the American culture. Now, I'm blessed and fortunate enough to do some international traveling. And so when I go to other countries, I don't see the rampant violence. I don't see the widespread, school shootings. I go to Fiji quite often. It's illegal to own a weapon there. You don't have that violence there. You might have some tribal village rivalry stuff, but it's everybody trying to work together to survive together. Here, I think in America, it's about separation. So all the different groups are separate and being pinned against one another, but it's not the majority of the folks that have the resources to make a difference. But we fighting one another. So how do we resolve this? How do we make an impact? How do we make a difference? I think about when I was growing up in Minnesota. One of the biggest things that I enjoyed and benefited as a child was playing outside, going to the boys club, being able to go there and interact with other kids. Now we have it where all the kids are just plugged into the electronic devices. They don't know how to interact with one another. If your child acts out and you go to discipline your child, now you're part of the problem. You're being violent. Now you're going to get dealt with as an abusive parent. But then our children are disconnected. And then they're playing this virtual world, and they really don't realize that those are real bullets you're shooting out that gun. This isn't a game that you can just hit reset. So when I say that, we touch one and teach one, and each one of us try to make an impact within the environment in which we operate out of. So as being the head of the house for the Micah House, it's my role and my responsibility to impact the lives of the people that come through the door. So I treat them with love and kindness. And I make it a priority to call them Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, to give them the respect, to empower them with the knowledge and the information that their lives does matter. I let them know that, yeah, I love you. I love you as a man. I love you with the love of God. And I allow them to see the love and compassion of Christ come through me to let them know that it can make a difference for them too. Now, being a faith-based program, I don't require that everybody be of any certain type of religion. Only thing that I require is that whatever it is that you say you believe in, practice that belief. And I have to lead by example because I'm not God. So I let them know that, hey, you have to develop your own personal relationship with him. It's not based upon me. So therefore, I hold them accountable. And because it's a culturally specific program, and I understand about how they may be programmed to act and operate a certain type of way, because that's what they've been accustomed to. So therefore, what I do is I look beyond the surface. I try to, deal with the individuals to get to the core issue of what they're dealing with, at least scratch the surface. Because I understand that a lot of times our survival mechanism is that we have accustomed ourselves to act a certain kind of way because we don't want to deal with ourselves. So therefore, if you start to get close to me, then my response mechanism is to push you away so that you don't see the real me. But when I remove those barriers by being kind, by being, attentive to say, hey, your voice does matter, and I'm just not going to discount you and tell you that, just shut up because I don't want to hear what you want to say, it begins to erode and crack at that wall. And then we have to deal with the reality. So when we tear down that wall and then the real person starts to emerge, I can't respond and say, okay, well, you're not conforming to all the rules and you're becoming a troublesome person, and put a label on them, which has been placed on them by far too many different organizations and entities, and maybe even their own family. And so therefore, I try to get to the real individual. Why? Because I understand that this is how they've always functioned, and I'm trying to get a different result. And when I first sought God's wisdom and guidance on doing the Micah House, because I didn't have no background in this, First thing I said, Lord, I don't want to have the results that other programs have. Where he said, well, don't do what they do. So I don't have the same approach that when a client relapses or a client acts out in the behavior, aggressive behavior, I try to approach it from a different perspective. Let's talk about what's really going on. Let's talk about how you really communicate with people. Do you think that that was a wrong approach? Could you have done that differently? How are you going to demand respect when you're not given respect? You made that choice. You have to deal with the consequences of your actions. Now, let's move forward. How are we going to resolve this so it doesn't repeat itself? You're here under court order, probation. You're complaining about this overbearing PO. Well, first of all, you have to realize it was your choices and your actions that put you in this position. Your choice and your actions gave them the power and control to dictate what happens to you. So it's going to have to be your power, your choices, your control that changes that scenario so that when they see you from now on, they don't see that same person. That jacket no longer fits you. You're a new person. I have an individual that has been with me now for over 6 months. Long time gangbanger, a lot of violence, robbing. He used to rob drug dealers, all that type of stuff. So he's court ordered. He's on probation. So I took him early one morning to court, and the judge said, "There's something different about you. What's going on? Talk to me." Well, he was in school, he was in treatment, he's been taking care of his business. And so the judge said, well, we're not going to send you back to jail. We're going to let you continue to do what you've been doing because it seems to be working. I can't get rid of this guy now. He's here every day. He's like family now. So he went back to school. He passed the test for his peer recovery specialist certificate, where now he wants to work in this field. So no, actually, he's been with me almost 10 months now. Because I told him, I said, well, after a year, you can come back here and work. So that's what he's shooting for. Because now he wants to make a difference in somebody else's life that made a difference in his. And so to me, that's what making a change and difference. I may not be able to change the whole world, but if I can change that one individual that has a family that now is looking at him differently because they're used to the old gangbanger. In fact, his son followed in the same footsteps because we understand this becomes generational. So I try to deal with the generational curse because I know that I fell subject to it. So I understand it. And so that's been the approach of the Micah House. And we tried to, impart these type of life lessons and connections because to me, that's what really makes a difference. And then when we look at the broader society and we see all of this confusion and chaos going on, it becomes discouraging. It becomes where you feel as though it really doesn't matter. And that's when the enemy wins. And another thing that I truly believe is that when we talk about stopping the violence, and it's a cultural thing that is part of our DNA. We go back to the beginning. Man has a criminal, evil side. Even Paul said, when I want to do good, I find myself doing bad. I got this thorn in my side. Please remove it, God. And he said, no, because he realized if God removed the thorn, then maybe that would remove his presence. So when I look at things, I look at it from a different perspective. And when I see what's going on in the world today, I don't get, discouraged. I'm not going to go stick my head in the sand, but I'm looking to see what God is trying to do. So when we look at a situation where in the last election, don't mean to get political, I'm just using an example. In the last election, I heard a lot of people saying, well, I'll never vote for a woman. Oh, she wasn't black enough. Oh, Trump is going to do X, Y, Z. And I told folks then, I said, you know what? When he becomes president and it doesn't go the way that people want it to go, don't be mad, don't complain. Because if you weren't part of the process, you have no right to speak. So therefore, I believe that just like in the Bible, when the people were complaining and wanted a king, he said, okay, well, I'll give you Saul. And what happened? Oh, the people were dissatisfied. They were not happy. And I believe that that's what's happening. So you say, oh, well, Trump is God's chosen. See, he survived, being shot, assassinated attempts 2 times. God has chosen him. No, I don't believe that. But I believe that God will allow the people to see so that they can know the difference. Because if you don't have bad, how do you know what good is? If you don't have disappointment, how do you know what joy is? So now we see the full-blown act of what's happening, and now the whole nation is starting to come together. So God would use an opportunity not to destroy, but to build up. Because God thinks about the bigger picture, not just the micro, but the macro picture, because he's talking about generations. Yes, it's a tragic of what happened with this woman. But as a result of her sacrifice, it's now going to spark a greater movement. When George Floyd happened, the next day I got a call from a pastor. The pastor that sent George Floyd to Minnesota. And so this pastor would send people to Minnesota. He would send them either to the Micah House or the Turning Point. And he said, you know what? I feel so bad because I sent George up there and now he's dead. And I said, you know what? George might have died an unknown addict in some alley somewhere. But as a result, God is going to use him to spark off a movement. And it changed. Not a permanent change, because then we got a change in power, and some of the policies that did get changed went back. But it created awareness. It sparked something in this country. It sparked something all over the world. So I believe that, things like, a person losing their life can be used for good. Because again, like I said, God looks at the bigger picture. Yeah, we feel the pain, we feel the loss, we feel the suffering. But if we didn't feel that, how would we know what happiness and joy were? So I think that with the violence and the solution, we're going to have the violence, but we got to be part of the solution. We have to impact individuals, one person at a time. We need different resources available. I mean, how can we say that we want, and I have the whole list of things that, attribute to violence, and, in your introduction, you listed a lot of them. So I already know you're aware of all of the, contributing factors. But what is it that's going to make a difference? Because it's not enough just to list the contributing factors, because they remain constant. We know about the social economic environment. We know about the culture and the family dynamics and the lack of education. But what are we going to do to be able to put some resources in these areas that's really going to make a difference? I don't know, because I'm not a legislator, but in my world, I try to impact and make a difference on a daily basis of the individuals I come in contact with, to show them that there's a different way, that there's a brighter day. And that's why it was so key with programs like Mad Dads with Brother VJ Smith, because we can work in contingent. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, we can work in tangent with one another, because when you have organizations, because everybody can't do everything, but when you have organizations that are committed and dedicated to serving their constituents or their target market, that everybody can play a role. So if one thing that I can stress is, one, whatever field, industry you're working in, your desire, your passion to make a difference and stopping the violence can be demonstrated on a daily basis with the individuals you come in contact with. Then on a broader perspective, if we can put resources, I don't know the influence of this organization, but resources into organizations that support, like I said, growing up, the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and the Boys Club, those were organizations that made a difference because it gave kids an outlet to do something productive after school. So we don't have a lot of after school programs. They want to cut after school programs, athletic programs, and all the type of programs that support activities where kids can engage and learn how to resolve conflict peacefully, at least in a constructive environment. So if a kid get into a fight, back in the boys club, they had a ring downstairs. They put the boxing gloves on and you guys got in the ring and you fought. Then after that, you go into school, you become friends. But you learn how to resolve conflict in a way that you both can walk away. Nowadays, you don't know. Kids are trying to prove something. You look at them, you turn your headlights on. Next thing you know, you're riding down the street, ICE bust your window in, take you out, shoot you in the face. I mean, it's just crazy. It's unpredictable. But I think that if we can all be responsible just to do our part, and if you're in a position of influence to be able to, sway and allocate funds and resources to supporting some of these organizations, then that's what we do. Because those are the things that make a difference. Because when you teach one, reach one, it can make a difference in that one's life. That's going to make a difference in others' lives. That's going to begin to grow exponentially to make an impact. Just like they say, a tsunami starts as a ripple on the other side of the world. So therefore, if we can just focus on those type of activities, I think that will make a difference and make this world a whole lot peaceful. But again, we have to have the support of organizations as well as the government. It's kind of hard to preach about peace and you got the government coming down on your neck. So with that, I'd just like to conclude with the fact that, again, to me, it's about an individual commitment and an individual impact, because when we can connect with people, then they can see the difference. Because it's kind of hard to preach about nonviolence, and not you personally, but you're living in the suburbs and you're talking to somebody in the inner city that has to go back home and deal with the reality of their circumstances. And so there becomes a disconnect. Not saying that you have to live in that environment, but there has to be a real connection. There has to be a felt investment on your part from the other individual, because a lot of times, especially when we're talking about violence in the inner city, it becomes our way of survival to be able to read people and to manipulate people. So if you read a person and you read that they're not genuinely concerned or connected, then you put a mark on them.
Yeah.
You call them a mark. You try to take advantage. You try to manipulate to get what you want. And so, like I said, I ain't always been Pastor Lockett, but when I start to speak to them, and they'll be like, how you know? Were you a fly on the wall? No, been there, done it, got the t-shirt to prove it. But that's because you don't see the old me. And that's what I try to empower them with, is that you don't have to be that person. And by the grace of God, when I left Minnesota, I could be a different person when I went to college. And that was freedom, because I wasn't bound by the definition of the people that I was associating with at that time. I could be a new person. So it didn't make sense to me to take that old thinking, that old man into a new situation and expect different results. They say that's the definition of insanity. So when I was down at Central State University, seeing all those Black people down there doing well, educated, coming from other cities that were predominantly Black, I knew that there was a possibility for something different. And I held on to it and I didn't let it go. When I came back to Minnesota, I made it my mission to be connected and help the people that I'm called to serve. And over these 22 years, I believe that we made a difference. And for that, I'm truly thankful for the blessing that God has allowed me to be the steward of. And I find joy and peace in what I do each and every day, because I'm responsible to pick up that one starfish and put it back. As long as I remain faithful to that, I'm good. God bless.
God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing that, uh, Pastor Lockett. And you made it very clear. I haven't always been Pastor Lockett. And I think sometimes when we step over that threshold, we don't want to deal with that part. But we have to realize it's those experiences that shaped us and mold us into who we are. I haven't always been Dr. Madeline, but I appreciate the seat that Dr. Madeline sits in now. And
Absolutely.
I can look back over my life and think things over and thank God for the changes that He made in me. And some of those changes came without my permission. You talked about having the focus for the needs of the people. I appreciate that. And what I notice and recognize about you is you don't have passive conversation. You don't have aggressive conversation, but you have assertive conversation. Calling them Mr. or Mrs., whichever the case may be, you're giving them back that respect. You are
Absolutely.
leading by example. And the thing that I notice in society today is so many people that just hate taking accountability. But you having that conversation with that guy and holding him accountable, saying, that's what you were. Where do you want to go with that? How do you want to change? You know what I mean? So as you're capitalizing on those teachable moments, you're also holding up a mirror that reflects back to them, and you're not absorbing it on your own person, but you're allowing them to take accountability for it by looking in that mirror and saying, what do you want to do different? So I appreciate that. The work that you're
Just you
doing.
about to make me shout over here. No, nothing but the Holy Spirit that revealed that to you.
Yeah, because and I'm listening and I'm paying attention, and I thank God for my gifts, but I'm paying attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth. You know what I mean? And looking at your posture. Some things you can fake, you can put on a facade, and some things you can't. You know what I mean? And I hear the realness in your tone, and to know that you've been there. So it's not something that you're reading out of a book or something that you made up or something that sounds good. You know what I mean? And the other thing that I want to speak to when I'm going to be done is what the enemy meant for bad.
Glory.
God will turn it into something good. You know what I mean? If we could just hold on to the process, if we can just hold on to the process and know that God is working it out, we can shout ahead of time. We can claim victory ahead of time because we know the God that we serve. You said you are a man that the Bible is your God. You know that his word returns to him, not void.
Not void.
So you already know that he's going to do exactly what he said he's going to do.
What he said he was going to do.
So as you continue to share your mantle and carry your mantle, I speak blessings into your life. I pray a hedge of protection around you, and you just keep on in the journey that God has given you, because that's your path, brother. That's your path. And I thank you for accepting the call.
Amen.
Okay, I'm
thank
done.
you so much. No,
can I just respond to that?
Please do.
Yeah, like I said, that's scripture. What the enemy meant for my demise, God would use for his glory.
Yes.
Everything works together for good for them who love the Lord and called according to his purpose.
That's right.
So that's why I embrace my past. I'm not ashamed. I'm not embarrassed, because God has turned that mess into a messenger.
That's right.
So therefore, I don't speak down, I speak to.
Yes.
And so I let them, in fact, I do a purposeful thing of humbling myself. So when you're talking about lead by example, I'm like the janitor around here, I'm the driver around here, because I want them to know, no, it's no big eyes, little you. And I don't allow them the excuse to say, oh, that's easy for you to say because of where you at. No, I ain't always been Pastor Lockett. I ain't always been here. I had to go through the process and make choices and decisions that's consistent with an individual that is here.
Yes.
So the only difference between You and me on the other side of the desk is the choices that you
It's the
make.
choices. That's right.
So I've had, in part of the unspoken, the influence and power of the Micah House is because it's Black owned. So I have more clients come through here that see a Black business owner. And I always make myself available to answer questions, give some guidance, wisdom. They'll call me, hey, Pastor Lockett, I'm starting this trucking company, or I got this real estate business. So it's inspired them. And these are a lot of them hardened criminals that have inspired them to go back and tap into something greater than themselves because they see that it's possible. And so I don't give them the excuse of trying to, explain away and justify me because I know me. I know my story.
Yes.
It don't be because I'm just William Lockett. It's because I made a decision to obey and follow God.
Yes.
So the same
So,
path is available for them that was available for me.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We have some other people that would like to ask you a question.
Absolutely.
Make statements. Also, I'd just like to just one little point earlier. I had to step outside, but anyway, you made, and I think it's one of the critical points, and that is that you said your method with him was so well done, or it made a difference that you can't get rid of him. What that means is that it's only signifying that the lack of love that he was yearning for, probably didn't know how to get it properly, you gave it. Therefore, that was the exact ingredients and medication he needed for stabilization, you see, and they were stable. And a lot are out there like that. But who is taking, and I think one of the critical points you said, you take time with that particular person. I would tell you a book that I read that took people who were, schizophrenic. The person decided, I'm going to take time to delve in a personal relationship with that person. And for a very long time, he healed that person. So, when you were talking, that came to mind. But I want to go to James Parker. Welcome, James. How are you? King James, how are you? Good to see you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I've been missing y'all.
We miss you too.
Oh, man. Oh, Mr. Lockett, I just can't tell you enough that this is the story, and probably many people around the world, had the bad background and everything, but we were prepared for this moment. We could have been locked up in jail for a long time, homeless. So many different things has happened in our lives. But now is the time for experience. God is putting people in place who has the experience to help those who are going through it. No more people with college degrees of being a social worker, but never being in a social place. So yes, everything you said is true. Only thing, the resources. We are the resources. Amen. When you talked about going to the boys club, I relate to that. I went to the boys club, but now we don't have the boys club anymore. But guess what we do have? We still got the parks and the playgrounds. So we take our experience that we had in the boys club out into the streets and to the playgrounds and change their mentality. When we cleaned up our parks and everything, we had to reteach the kids in the park, because all they grew up on was shooting, stealing, robbing, drugs, alcohol. That's all they knew. They knew they could go to the park and do these things. Now, we used to do it back in the day in our parents' basement, but these kids now do it outside in the playground. So when we cleaned up the parks and when we made ourselves present, we had to teach them how to hula hoop. We had to teach them how to potato sack race. We had to teach them how to think differently when they come into the park. And as that result, we had no more shootings in the park for over 15 years.
Amen.
So our generation got to experience a lot of things that this generation is not receiving. We did after school cares and all those things. We still can do after school cares in the community. We got a band that came out and taught the kids how to play instruments every Tuesday in the
Nice.
park. You know, so we're not defeated. We just have to reinvent the strategies and everything else. If they're not letting us do it in the schools, we can still do it in our community. And
I
that
agree.
stops the gangs, that stops the drugs, that stop, and it empower them with something they never thought they could experience. So, you know, I just wanted to congratulate you. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Call me if you need me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and that's redirecting the negative energy, turn it into a positive situation. Yes, our foundation was Boys and Girls Clubs, you know, and things of that nature. But to be able to, for lack of a better term, to think outside of the box, King James, and say we can hula hoop in the park, because Pastor Laka said earlier, he said everybody, the kids now on video games, but they don't realize that you're shooting and resetting on that video game, but you can't do that out there in the street. And I hear what you're saying, King James, is we're teaching them the fundamentals that we came up with, you know, and that includes in compassion and respect. So thank you both. There you go. You know, that's what I was looking for. That's my brother there. You know, so and as we move forward, it's a blessing that, you know, on this call we're getting a greater level of understanding, you know, and maybe even thinking more broadly, because of however our current situation is, we're getting in tune with better and greater ideals as we go along. Wayne, I see you with your hand up. You want to unmute?
Yes. Pastor Lockett, thank you for
Yes, sir.
sharing your story with us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It does take a special person to be able to get out and help addicts on the street. That's not a common quality. So it's wonderful to see that. But my question to you is, dealing with addicts, we hear a lot about fentanyl in the news these days. How much of a problem is that, or what are the drugs that are causing the problems?
Been doing this for 22 years, and this fentanyl epidemic has changed everything. I've had more deaths in the past year than I had in the previous 21 years combined. It's such a new drug. They really don't know the psychological impact and the physiological impacts it's going to have on the brain and the body. But one of the things that I'm seeing, because I had to pass them every day to get to the program, they don't care about coldness. They don't care about dying. In fact, they get angry when you narc them. They get upset.
Wow.
They just want to drift off into death. It's having such an impact. It's like the movie with Will Smith, I Am Legend. In that movie, there's a scene where he goes in this building, and in the dark room, because he's looking for his dog, is full of these zombies huddled together. That's exactly how they look. They huddle together. They're standing up asleep, or they may be bent over at 90-degree angle, not fall over, totally zonked out of their mind. I'm riding past and seeing them in bus stops, getting high. The women with the long hair pull the hair over their face, getting high up under the hair. They're dying and they don't care. And for the first time, it's exhausting me. It's draining me to see this because of my passion and love for people. It hurts my heart to see them like this. And what I'm also seeing is that they're getting younger. Now, you've seen the news and you hear about, you know, all the fraud with the Somalians in Minnesota and all of this kind of stuff. Well, we have a large Somalian population here. I've been seeing more, dealing with more referrals of Somalian clients than I've ever done before. And when I hear their story, there's no, most Americans have a drug history where they evolved from one drug to another drug. They started out maybe, marijuana, alcohol, powder cocaine, crack cocaine, heroin. But these Somalian kids are going from no drug history to fentanyl. And they're having such a high tolerance to it. And I'm saying, like, okay, well, to me, that's like the enemy's trying to remove a whole generation of kings, warriors, because they're strong in their culture, strong in their beliefs, but trying to adopt and assimilate to the American culture has now derailed their culture into something that wasn't supposed to be. You used in the past, you had certain drugs that were of certain communities. That's no longer the case.
Right.
So it used to be that crack cocaine was a black problem. It's no longer the case. It's everybody's problem. It used to be that meth was a white problem. No longer. It's a everybody's problem. Heroin used to be a certain type of population problem. Now it's everybody's problem. The drug dealers don't care. They just want to make the money. And the scary thing about the fentanyl is that they're putting fentanyl in everything. Regular codeine pills, they're repressing them, putting fentanyl in them. They're putting them in marijuana. They're putting them in cigarettes. They're putting them in everything, heroin. And so that's causing people to OD at a higher rate because they weren't used to that drug. So that's what's going on right now. And it really vexes my spirit. And I'm ready to sail off and, I know I don't look it, but I'm 60 years old. I'm about to retire. But no, I love what I do and I love the people. And it's really sad to see how this fentanyl is killing so many of our youth.
Okay, thank you very much. Wayne? We
You're
can't hear
muted.
you, Wayne. Unmute.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry. On the one point that President Trump is acting on, of going after the fentanyl dealers in Venezuela and bombing the boats, is that something that you support? That one issue that President Trump is doing and being very aggressive on?
Was the agenda that would be, but it's been proven fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela. Very little drugs come from Venezuela that make it to America. The drugs that come from Venezuela go to Europe. So that's a different agenda under the smokescreen of stopping fentanyl. Fentanyl doesn't come from there. Fentanyl comes from China through Mexico. It doesn't come from Venezuela. That's a talking point. There's no truth in it.
Anyway, let's move forward. God bless you. Thank you so much for coming on, and we look forward to having you back. I really appreciate the MICA method, which is a critical method, and that is getting to know the person. And basically that goes back to some of the things that we discovered here, and that is family. The lack of the cohesive family plays sometimes a role in the dysfunction of people's lives. And so a person like you come in as a surrogate pops, a surrogate whatever, that becomes a critical point in their healing method, in the method of their healing, and also giving them confidence, insights, and hopes, and dreams. It takes others to help you, to give you that confidence, to give you that security, if you will. Instead of replacing the security with violent behavior, you replace it by the love, someone who understands, who is willing to go the 9 yards with you, no matter what. You see, that's the heart of a parent. That's the heart of a true brother and a true sister. So we're so grateful and thankful for people like yourself. You're always these are the gems that are out there, and what we're doing, Pastor Lockett, is, we're doing a collection of the gems, through this Stop the Violence, because many times there's so many of your fellow associates out there that don't know you, but they're doing similar things that you are. How do we come together and create a national impact through what you're doing and through what they're doing, so that there will be no excuse of those who sometimes don't want to see the results, but the results will come because there will be a national cohesiveness that will stand and say, we will stop it now, no more. So I'm really grateful. So we give you the last word as we come to our close. We would love to hear from you and give you the last word, my brother.
Well, I'm impressed because the spirit is definitely within this group. And for you guys to be as intuitive to be able to pick up and receive what it is that I share with you today, to me, is just confirmation. And Brother James, King James, you talked about something in terms of, it doesn't take the degrees and all of that. There's a saying in the recovery community. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
What you care.
And so that is imperative in the work that you're embarking on and the work that I do, is that the people that we're trying to impact have to choose to receive what it is that we have. But when they choose it, they want to make sure that it's pure and coming from a right place. Because you're right, when they feel that impact of that love and that connection, because a lot of times that is what's missing. And that gentleman that I was speaking of, he's still dealing with self-doubt. He still finds it hard to accept being successful. See, the name of my corporation is called Victory Through Faith, because I understand that the only way that we achieve the victory is by our faith. And so that's the next phase. Then now he don't realize that there's a greater possibility. Now he has to realize that he deserves a greater possibility. A lot of times we will self-sabotage our success because we're afraid. We're not afraid to fail. We're afraid to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So my belief is you're not a failure until you quit, that you fail your way to success. And each failure is a teaching moment to prepare you of what not to do, because in life, we don't always get the manual and the instructions how to do everything right, but we have to learn from experience. And a lot of those experiences is going to be shortfalls. So that's why I say you fail your way to success, but you're not a failure unless you quit.
I love that. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Failure
And can I say this one thing, Reverend Oliver?
That's the title of my book, so don't you try to bite.
Look, I won't try to bite it, but this is another saying that blessed me over the years. God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the call.
Amen.
So in that process, we know that God has His hand on our life, and according to Jeremiah 29:11, He has a plan and a purpose that is good and not of evil. So as we move forward, like I feel the energy. I'm an energy vibe frequency type person, but I feel the energy, I feel the vibe, and I think everyone that's on the call, Reverend Oliver, it's good to be back. It's good to see you. And until we meet again, peace and blessings to all.
Peace and blessings. Thank you so much. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to see you, James. Happy New Year, and everyone else.
Is everybody seeing two Waynes on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought somebody spiked my smoothie. I was like, I'm seeing two Waynes. What's happening right now?
Wayne is twice as nice.
Look, you thought your crown was tilted.
Yeah, like what's happening on here?
All right, wonderful people. Thank you so much. Mary Robles, thank you so much. Good to see your face for coming on. We really enjoy having you here as well.
Pleasure to be here.
Else. Yeah. So God bless you. Pastor Lockett, we will stay in touch, especially through DJ, because a lot of things are coming up. We're having a conference that we'll see you